Lots to talk about as usual out on the federal front. I guess your most recent one, I mean, we'll kind of start with that, and that's the polling and such with regards to the federal Conservative Party of Canada race.
Yeah, I noticed this morning, and I think the Western Standard picked up on this as well from this Canadian Press story. I really found this Leger poll to be completely haywire, because it's basically no more accurate than some online poll where you ask a question and you take the first 100 responses and that's your poll. So it's completely inaccurate, and there wasn't even a positive or negative in terms of accuracy, because it wasn't accurate. And I took two things from it. First of all, the 44% of Conservative voters apparently favor Pierre Poilievre, 17% favor Jean Charest. So I said, hey, you add that up, that means where's the other 39%? And it certainly wasn't going equally to the other three contenders. So I don't know, the number crunching has some problems. But what really got me is the suggestion that Canadians, writ large, Canadians as viewed and defined by the Liberal Party of Canada, don't like Pierre Poilievre, and they like Jean Charest. He's a nice red Tory in the comfy sweater. And why are Conservatives backing the wrong horse? So I found this poll to be very suspect, but at the same time, expect more of this in the next couple of months, because Pierre is going to win this Conservative leadership race. I mean, if you have any money on it, good for you. If you're just interested in political science, I don't think there's any way he can lose, because he's put the most work into it. He's certainly got the biggest crowds when he's out on the hustings. And I think, as I said in a previous column, the endorsement by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper was the icing on the cake in terms of getting people into his camp. So, but he's not liked by the mainstream media, by the state media. He's considered to be too dangerous, whatever the heck that means, and can mean anything they want it to mean, of course. But I really do think we're going to see a lot of smearing going on against Pierre Poilievre, because I think he's going to beat Justin Trudeau, if Justin's still around for this next election. And if, as a lot of people have been theorizing, we might have a fall election, I think Pierre is going to have the momentum from winning the leadership race, and he's going to walk into this election fully prepared and warmed up and ready to go. And I think he's got this election beaten if it happens soon.
Well, and you know, those discussions, they come up basically anytime there's a candidate coming up who's unapologetically conservative. We're seeing that here in Alberta as well, where it appears anyways that Daniel Smith is got a pretty good lead going on in the leadership race. So they start saying, well, sure, the conservative policies are good, and yes, they make sense, and their common sense, but they'll never win with the public. So we can't go with that candidate because we can't sell conservative policies to the public. And, you know, I think it might scare some people away, but typically, despite what people say, if they could be believed, we never would have had a Ralph Klein. We never would have had a Ronald Reagan. You know, I mean, you can sell conservative policies to an electorate. You just have to sell it right.
Well, that's very true. And I'm furious to some degree. I mean, I never get that furious with people. I get furious with ideas. But the idea that Poilievre is somehow wrong to talk about freedom. I saw this the other day on Natasha Carradin's LinkedIn site, and she was doing an interview with a Calgary radio station, which will remain nameless, with a host that I know very well and have never gotten along with. But she said the subject of the conversation was going to be how talking about freedom offends some Canadians. And I said, you call yourself a conservative? This is what Poilievre's campaign has been all about. And as far as I'm concerned, this is what conservatism is all about. It's about freedom. It's about liberty. And if we don't talk about positive conservatism, as Ronald Reagan did, better than anybody else, I think, in the late 20th century, we're not going to win this, because we're going to be phony Tories. We're going to be phony liberals. We're going to be the same thing we were in the last election, which was not sure where we were politically. maybe somewhere to the right of Justin Trudeau, but not really in terms of real policy. So I get very frustrated when I hear conservatives say we need Jean Charest because he's a nice guy, and Canadians all like him, except he's got the same policies as the current government, as far as I'm concerned. He's no different from Aaron O'Toole, who we had in there recently. And we do not need another Liberal leading the Conservative Party. We need a decision in this next election. We need a choice. And Pierre Poilievre is certainly going to provide that choice. Is he the only candidate that's providing that choice? No. I like most of the candidates in this race, but I think he's the only one that can win. It's going to be a very nasty race in the next election because they're going to throw everything at Pierre that they can possibly come up with in terms of him being too extreme, too right-wing, too dangerous, too populist, blah, 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 too much like Donald Trump. You wait for it. It's all going to come out. But I think Pierre is astute enough, articulate enough, and good on his feet enough to come back at this stuff. And I don't think another candidate out there is going to be tough enough to go against the Liberal machine, whether it's Justin Trudeau or whether it's, God forbid, the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland. I don't care who they put up, but the Liberal Party is a vicious political machine when it's in full mode election action. And I think it's going to be a very tough election. And I think Pierre is up to it, though. And I think we need someone with his stamina and his guts to fight this election, to duke it out with the Liberals and the NDP in this next election.
Well, that's it. I mean, when we try to out-liberal the Liberals, people will just vote Liberal. I mean, if I were a Liberal voter, I've got, well, this is a Conservative pretending to be Liberal, and here's a Liberal who's unapologetically Liberal. I'm going to vote for the Liberal. And meanwhile, the Conservative voters see a Conservative saying he's Liberal, and what do? They stay home. And we saw that with O'Toole. And we'll see it again if we try to stick another pretend Liberal up there. I mean, just
you reminded me of something here, Corey. I really have to do a column about this because what the Brexit results showed a couple of years back in Britain was that there were about 20% of the electorate was sitting out elections because they just weren't motivated to vote. They didn't think there was enough of a difference, enough of a choice. And they came out for Brexit to overwhelmingly say, no, we don't want to be part of the European Union. And that was the secret of that campaign's success. It wasn't saying, we're going to attract the Liberal voters on our side. It was, we're going to get those people who haven't been voting. And that's what Pierre has really been going after. I don't know, consciously or not. I hope so. But his populist message, which is very like what the Republican Party is trying to get out in the States, is that it's not a party that's open to every idea out there, but it's open to everybody out there who wants to be part of this political movement. And it's a conservative populist movement that is attracting blue collar workers, working class people, new immigrants, people who have traditionally not voted conservative are going to be voting conservative in this next election because, quite frankly, the Liberals are bankrupt of ideas and policies. And they're getting excited about this idea of freedom. They're not turned off about freedom. That's why they came to Canada. That's why new immigrants come to Canada. They want to be free. And my goodness, working class people are tired of paying taxes the same way middle class and upper class people are. They're tired of working for the government. So I think we've got a great opportunity here to sell positive conservatism.
Yeah, I believe so too, if it can be done right. And getting on that speculative road, I mean, there's two big speculations, whether or not there'd be a fall election. The other thing you wrote about wondering, well, Trudeau is out languishing in Costa Rica at great expense to all of us. Not that he's cheap for all of us when he's home either. But you think he might be just, making his mind up? Is it time to give it one more kick at the can to try and get a majority, or that he might throw his hands up and say, maybe it's time to walk off into the sunset?
I definitely think he's weighing his career. He's weighing his chances. He's weighing his legacy, because people like Trudeau, who are very, very narcissistic, it's all about legacy for them. They want to leave a legacy behind. And right now, he really doesn't have much of a legacy except legalizing marijuana and being one of the worst prime ministers in the history of this country. So I think he's wondering what he can do to stay in power. I don't think he's really contemplating resignation, but I think he is plotting his return, as it will, and he wants to come back with something. Right now, I think he is in very, very dangerous ground. He's incredibly unpopular. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's delusion. But Justin Trudeau, don't ever think he sells himself short, because he really thinks he has a lot to offer this country.
Yeah. Well, he lives in a special bubble world of his own, I'm sure. I mean, as you said, you can't underestimate that Liberal machine, though. I mean, even if the guy at the head of it isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, they've got some very powerful strategists and connections. That they will be a well-funded campaign, and they just can't be taken lightly. So, I mean, the Conservatives are definitely going to have to go straight into at least election preparation mode the moment they're finished with their leadership race.
Yes, they will, because there's no time to waste with this, and this is going to be a very tough election, as I said. And I think the Conservatives have to be prepared for that, and I think they will be. I mean, they're not naive, and as I said, I think Poilievre he's a tough political character. There's no question about it. He's been there long enough to understand politics is a tough sport.
Yeah, that it most certainly is. Well, I appreciate you coming in to talk to us today, David, and always those prolific Ottawa-based columns coming out from out there. Have you got stuff coming down the pipe you can give us a heads up on, or are you still seeing what you're going to write on next? I know you just put one up a couple.
Yeah,
hours.
I just put one up next. I'd like to revisit the this fertilizer mess, which I had a great time last week talking to former Agriculture Minister Jerry Ritz, which is just going up the turnstile there. Jerry is really motivated to get out about this message that Trudeau is deliberately tampering with our food supply by essentially banning fertilizer because it contains nitrogen, which he thinks is causing greenhouse gases. And he would rather Canadians go without food and starve than emit a few more greenhouse gases. And it's really quite negligible in terms of, is this having any effect on climate change at all? Probably not, because even if we stopped emitting any greenhouse gases in Canada, and if Justin Trudeau stopped flying in his Challenger jet and creating this huge carbon footprint, even if he stopped it, China and India would still be producing much more of these things than we are. So really, I don't think we want to fall on our sword over this. I think we want to keep food production up. And as Jerry points out, there's no more responsible environmental stewards out there than farmers. Farmers are some of the best, but they're being punished by Justin Trudeau because he doesn't think they're important. He doesn't think people who work the land, he doesn't think people who produce the food that he eats, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he thinks it comes from the grocery store and nothing before that. He doesn't think that's important. And I think that this is an issue. I think it's the most important issue facing Canada right now. And this might destroy Justin Trudeau's political career, because I think there's enough sane people in the Liberal caucus who are saying this is insanity. This is madness. We cannot go down this route because this sounds like a Maoist Great Leap Forward, which ended in catastrophic results.
Well, Canada's agriculture minister just this morning was up saying, no, you guys are misinterpreting. We want a voluntary reduction of 30%. I don't think anybody believes her.
No, it's not voluntary. It won't be voluntary, but the tariff on fertilizer is not voluntary right now. They're not talking about that. We're the only G7 country that's taxing fertilizer out of the market for farmers. They literally will not be able to afford to buy fertilizer. And that's not voluntary. A tariff is a tariff. So don't trust or believe with the Liberal government on this, because they are driven by a radical climate change agenda. And that's really all they care about, is satisfying their masters in the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, and the people who are pushing for radical green energy plans.
Yeah, I mean, well, they don't. The elitists who are pushing this don't care if the price of caviar goes up a little for them, but it's going to hurt everybody else in a terrible way if they get these sorts of things pushed through. But all right, well, thank you very much again for coming on and keeping on with these. It's definitely one to follow up on. As you said, this is an issue that could grow big. I mean, it took down a government in Sri Lanka. It's got the Dutch government paralyzed. I mean, I think they've overplayed their hand on this thing, and that might be the catalyst for change in Canada finally.
I hope so. We can only hope and pray. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to talk to you, David. It always is. And I look forward to seeing more columns in the coming days.
A pleasure meeting with you again, Corey, and all the best.